Good evening, Internet. Welcome to that Silverline show on Tuesday. I'm Jose Fuentes. Our faithful host Tim is out fighting the forces of evil tonight and may or may not make it on. But I'm here with my good friend and co-host Ron Fortier. I believe we're going to get visited with David Reyes in a little bit. But hi guys, how you doing?
Hey, we're back. Here we go.
Right?
Yeah. So David will join us. We didn't mention it last week, but the other one of our co-hosts, regulars, Brant Larson, is off for a while because he's working on a special project. Which after the last time he did a show for us, ended that episode. We have these little post episodes where we talk a little bit amongst ourselves after we finished airing an episode. And Brant let us know that he was working on a special project that was going to be time consuming.
Yes.
So he's off for a while, but we wish him all the best, that he gets whatever this project is in the can. It's something special, and I hope it works really well for him. Right? Yeah.
You guys want to know what the special project is? It is, I have no idea, because he hasn't let us know. It's keeping his specials close to the vest from all of us, and we are happy for it, and we are excited to hear about it when he's ready to present to us, and just celebrate our friends, celebrate projects that we work on together. So
always. I mean, and usually for a writer, when a writer makes that kind of a comment, it's generally going to be, in Brant's case, it's going to be either one of two things. Either he's working on a prose novel, all right, a film script, or a graphic novel.
That's right.
And trust me, any one of those that he writes is going to be worth your time and interest.
Heck yeah. And for those that are joining that don't know, Brent, Brent wrote Kalis. Kalis was it Achilles is Falling, and if you haven't picked up the book, you can get it in our current crowdfund as something extra, because we have all our books in there. But while I bridge that, see how I did that? I'm going to bring it up. This is our current crowdfund right now, guys. Beyond the Stars, number 1 through 5. I have read it. Ron has probably read it.
Yeah, right.
And
yes, I have. Anyways,
amazing artwork. Andrea is an amazing artist. Like, just shock and awe every time I see you share pages that he's done. Is just phenomenal work.
No, I'm so in love with issue number 5. When 2 weeks ago, when we launched this, we did that special episode where you and the rest of the guys, we had fun playing that game about who created the characters and stuff like that. And I had mentioned at that time his initial preview pages before any of us knew what this was going to be, all right, were action pages, pretty much like his cover, and like the one you did, the alternate cover, you see, all right. And I really wanted to get back to that kind of visuals that he does so amazingly well, and that leads into issue number 5, which is what's being funded right now. I mean, this thing basically shows the science warriors getting down and gritty and fighting these weird bug creatures, these animated stone warriors. All right, it's wall to the wall action sequences. And if you like that kind of stuff, then trust me, issue number 5 is for all of you out there. Believe me.
Yeah, his narrative artwork is just phenomenal. It really does capture the eye, not just how beautiful it looks, but the way the pacing is. And I mentioned this before. Pacing is important when doing comic books. You know what I mean? It keeps the reader going. You hit those clicks, you know what I mean, that you're just like, yeah, oh, and it just keeps building. And that's what's going on with this, your story with his artwork, your guys' mutual stories. You guys worked on it together.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely the reason I love doing comics so much, Jose, is that ability to work with another creator of a different sensibility.
Right.
All right. So I can imagine the story literally. all right, and see it in my head. But man, when the artist I'm working with puts it on paper, all right, and adds his own sensibilities of storytelling, it blows my mind. I'm like that little kid again. I mean, I've loved comics since I was a child. I still love them to this day, and even more so creating them. It's just you know, I think it's the best job in the world. Making comics to me is just so much fun. It's something I don't ever want to give up.
All right, so come over here, guys, and you see we have 3 different covers. Andrea's cover is cover A. Rob Davis's beauty of a cover is cover B, and my chicken scratches is cover C.
No, it's not at all. Trust me. Okay?
I love Rob's cover. I'm sorry, like I love Andrea's, but I love Rob's cover.
Let me add. I watched the episode of Wednesday Wham that he co-hosts the week we launched this, because we have the Tuesday night show.
Right.
They have Wednesday Wham. And in their opening segment of promoting it, all right, as the new Silverline book that's out there, Rob had nothing but high praise for your cover, my friend.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he really loved it and thought it was great.
That was
so
awesome. I love Rob. Rob's such a great guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And so where are we at? We have 15 backers.
Yeah.
We have 15 backers. We have 6 days to go, which is going to take us through the rest of this week. All right.
We are $98 from our goal.
That's it.
That's it. $98 from our goal. And unless, fans want to keep pushing and get us to our first stretch goal, which I wanted to share because I want to share. Our first stretch goal is at $1,000 is going to be a digital copy of Captain Hazard, Python Men of the Lost City, written by Ron. I have read this. I love this book.
Oh.
I have this book. I think Ron mentioned it one time, like a year or so ago, and I went out and right away and got it.
I'm really flattered, Jose, big time. All right, this is one of those books that I first read it. Oh man, I think when I came out of the military in 1968, I got back into comics in a huge way, and I found out that there were people reprinting old pulp classics and what they call facsimile editions. So they're just black and white stuff, you know what I'm saying? But it's the actual pulp, page for page, ad for ad, whatever. And there was a guy named Bob Weinberg, God bless his soul. He passed away a few years ago, salt of the earth, and one of the biggest promoters of pulp fandom in this country. And he had started a program where, like, he would reproduce a classic pulp magazine in its entirety as a digest and sell it for $5 online.
Oh, wow.
So I started buying them from him. Every time he put out a new one, I'd buy it. So I started getting familiar with characters like Secret Agent X, the Black Bat. And then one month, he comes out with this one and only Captain Hazard, Python Men of the Lost City. All right. And in his lead up to it, he explains the fact that there had only ever been one Captain Hazard. So I read the book. I love the potential of it. I got where the writer was coming from. But in the back of my mind, I thought to myself, there are so many plot problems with this that if I could get my hands on it someday and have the ability to redo it, I would. Well, that happens like 20, 25 years later when Rob and I created Airship 27, right, and started producing new pulp adventures. And that was my opportunity. I dug into the closet, went through all my boxes, found all those little, reprint digests, picked up Captain Hazard, and said, "Buddy, this is it. You're getting the revamp you deserve for almost 70 some odd years." So I sat down, reread it once, then put it next to me by my PC and started rewriting the entire book. At the same time, changing what I thought was wrong with it, adding new chapters, defining the characters better, fixing those plot points or whatever. And that was it. We got a guy named Mark Maddox to do that cover.
Love
all right.
it.
Oh, I mean, if you look at what's up on the screen, to the left is the original pulp cover.
Okay.
And then you look at,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, Jose, I get stories for you that will blow your mind, all right?
All right.
That cover on the left of the original Captain Hazard, all right? If you look at the composition really well, it's Hazard hanging off a building with this lovely woman over his shoulder. Meanwhile, one of the Python men is leering over the top of the building, okay? Like kind of threatening them.
Okay.
Okay. Now, again, jump ahead, way ahead to me for my career. As all this is happening, I end up at Now Comics in Chicago, bringing back the Green Hornet, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they go out and they get Jim Steranko to do the cover of issue number 1.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, if you look at that particular cover, he swiped that composition. No, very few people would get that, but I did. All right. When I saw the cover for the Green Hornet, it blew my mind. That's beautiful. And then I stopped and I went, huh? What the heck? Okay. So continue this story, which I hope our listeners are enjoying. All right. The guy who did the original pulp cover was a classic, one of the finest original pulp artists of his time, named Norm Saunders. Okay? He did that cover.
Okay.
All right. So, like I said, all these years later, Steranko does a swipe of the cover. Instead of Hazard, you got the Green Hornet holding a girl over his shoulder, and instead of the Python man at the top of the roof, you have Kato.
Okay.
All right. So if you ever go back and look at the Now images of my first ever Green Hornet, that's that cover I'm talking about. Now, Rob and I are at a pulp convention, and who happens to be there but Norm Saunders' son, David Saunders. All right. Norm had since passed away, and so David put out a book of his father's artwork from the pulps. All right, The Art of Norm Saunders, and he was selling it at that con. Rob was so taken with it, Rob bought a copy of it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, and had it autographed by him and everything else. Okay. Sometime during the convention, I'm walking through the hall, and who's walking past me going the other way but Dave? So I stop him, right? I said, excuse me. I said, Mr. Saunders? And he looks at me and goes, yes. And I, stuck out my hand. We shook hands. I said, I'm Ron Forty. I'm a writer here. I says, I just wanted to tell you, I says, a few years back, I said, I did a series called The Green Hornet for Now Comics. And the minute I said that, this look on his face, this smile came on his face, right? And he goes, oh, yeah. Okay. And I went, so you know? He says, yeah. He says, a few years back, he says, Jim, who my family's known for many years, Steranko, invited me to his house one afternoon. So I went with him, and while we were talking, he's taking me around, showing me all the recent paintings he's done that are up on the wall, right? And he said, we turned this corner to this one room, and I see that painting of the Green Hornet. He sees it and tries to divert me to go to another room. Because he said, I immediately recognized the pose coming from the Captain Hazard book.
That's awesome.
And so he caught Steranko with his hands in the cookie jar, right? At which point he laughed and told Steranko, hey, he says, you swiped that from my dad's cover painting, right? And Steranko admitted it. Of course he did. He couldn't deny it, right?
Right.
And David laughed and told him, he says, well, he goes, look, he said, my dad and all his colleagues who worked in the 1930s doing all this beautiful artwork, right? He said, they had a saying about swiping, all right? If you're going to swipe from somebody, a colleague, a peer, or whatever, have the decency to make it better. And he goes, he pointed at the Green Hornet cover, and he said, "Dad would have loved that. You did a great job with it."
That's awesome.
So there's that story. So yeah, so we went and got a guy named Mark Maddox, who also absolutely lives in Florida right now. Mark was just breaking into the business as a cover painter and did a couple of pieces for Airship 27, including the R cover for Captain Hazard, and I love that piece. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Hey, awesome.
Dave, welcome in, sir. We're just going over
Hello.
fun to see, showing where we're at so far, what we need to go to, but yeah, and Ron was talking about the Captain Hazard stretch goal. So, just a quick little recap of that. You can go to what was it, Fund My Comic, and go to, I believe we're one of the top 3, I think, or top 4 up there. You can click on Beyond the Stars 1 through 5, or you can go to SilverlineComics crowdfunder.com, and that will take you directly to our crowdfund page. And I should say, as Tim does, like, you are not funding a pipe dream. You are backing a book that's completely done. Pages are all done, lettered, colored, inked, everything ready to go. This is just our way of keeping inventory and be able to offset the cost of printing.
Right, and one of the things that I always like to point out, and again, as Tim has done in the past, is that this is issue number 5, but issues number 1 through 4 are still available. So if this intrigues you, for whatever reason didn't know about the previous issues, here's your opportunity to catch up.
That's right.
And the price for all 4 issues is those first 4 issues is ridiculously cheap. I think it's like, what, $20 for the first 4. I mean, it's almost a giveaway. So you can, like, fund issue number 5, pick up the first 4. You'll get those with number 5, and trust me, you're almost home. We have 1 more issue to go, number 6, and we'll wrap up the entire series.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm ready to hear it. And as just to add as well, we also have our other books somewhere in there, and I don't know where they're at. I think I passed it up. You can catch up on any of the others. Oh, there you go. Digital catch up of that's Beyond the Stars. Do it, catch up on it, read it. It is a great book. I'm excited for this book. I love this book. Like, I stared at the pages before I worked on my cover. I stared at the pages forever just because they were so beautiful.
Well, there's the digital version, but then there's also a little bit above it for 24 is the printed.
Oh, there you go.
Issue 5 and 1 through 4.
So
yes, get on it. Get on it. And,
6 days to go. 6 days to go to reach goal, and hey, maybe beyond. If we wake up tomorrow morning, guys, and we've reached goal, then we're definitely shooting for the stars and that stretch goal.
That's right. All righty. With that, let's get on to our topic. A topic
go ahead. No, before we do topic, though, I think it's only right. I just wanted to mention, and the 2 of you have probably already seen this, okay? But I think it needs mentioning, especially because this is what we do. We're the comic book guys. We should basically tip our caps and our hearts to the fact that we've lost 2 of the best, arguably, writers in our business within a week. All right. And I'm talking about, of course, Jerry Conway, and just today, sadly, Len Strewski. All right. I mean, who wrote for many, many years the Justice Society of America for DC. All right. I mean, both.
I'm a Justice Society fan.
You and me both. I had the opportunity to meet Jerry at a pulp convention many, many years ago. Salt of the Earth, really, really great guy. Both of them, ironically, both of them born the same year. Both of them 71 years old.
Interesting.
All right. So yeah, and a real loss to the comic world. But hey, you know what? Again, we thank them, and that as long as people love comics, and their work will live on for many, many, many years.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Prayers and love to their family.
Yes.
Well, Jerry is actually local, or local to.
Local for you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, he did a local signing few months ago, and it was listed. He pretty much said this is my last official signing.
Right.
So
Oh.
he did his last signing a few months ago. So yeah, and that was, I want to say, maybe 20 minutes away from me. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah, a few people local know him, so, or knew the family. So it
Right.
definitely was. It's a sad thing for sure. And Lynn really didn't expect that. So definitely lost some good talents, great
Right.
talent, some great people. So
Yeah. Who entertained us completely all the time. Definitely. Yep. All right. So what is our topic for tonight, Jose?
Our topic tonight is something I haven't quite fully figured out yet. It's how comic creators make money in doing comics. Now, in regards to comic books and making an income from it, I mean, I am a full-time professional artist. Okay. I do stay home all day and draw pretty pictures. Okay. But not everybody does. Okay. And as far as I understand, even professional, comic book creators have day jobs. I couldn't tell you what some of them are right now. I know that some of them have day jobs. There was one artist I knew that he was a dentist, or a writer. Sorry, he was a writer. He was a dentist, right? And so I question, both you and Dave Run, because you guys have been in the business definitely longer than I have. Not saying nothing about age, but like in regards to, you guys have had more professional, big time professional work than I have. So I asked the question to you guys: how do you make money doing this, doing comics? How do you, like? I know there's miraculous opportunities on crowdfunding situations where you could put a book out there, people love it, and you are the next morning you're $3 million backed, right? But that's not the norm. The norm is we're praying that you get past that last bit of hump and hope that you get enough to buy a celebratory ice cream cone afterwards. And if you're crazy fly in my room. If your love is for the comics and the process and just the art of making it, then that is going to be the tastiest ice cream cone in the whole wide world. You know what I mean? When you complete your crowdfunding goal. But people like the idea of being able to make an income out of it. I know that when I went to art school, my professionals, my teachers were professionals and taught us that this is how they made their money. This is how they made their living and survived. And then they also told us, I learned at a convention from another creative artist to say, if you're getting into comic books to make your millions, find a different career choice. So I feel that both sides of this coin could easily be validated, but I'm a realist. And I'm not looking to go in and, make millions and walk away with, gold-plated doorknobs. You know what I mean? So I ask you guys, how do you make money in this business? How do you make money?
Well, I mean, right? I look about when I started actually submitting scripts and trying to get into the business, and we're talking the late 1970s into the 80s, and I look at the business today, and aside from things like Kickstarter and the internet and self-publishing, which opens the door, much wider to independent,
Right.
Houses and comics. There were independents back in those days as well, and I guess that's the big shift. All right, you're always going to have independent outfits, which are really small. Like if for want of a better terms, you can call them mom and pop comic shops if you want. All right, which are made by comic book lovers and friends who want to make comics. All right. And if you end up working for them, the odds are good you're not going to make a single dollar. Most likely, if what you produce is worthwhile and they know what they're doing publishing wise and whatever, you'll probably walk away with a whole bunch of comp copies. All right, like 30, 40, 50 copies of whatever you did. And that was the way I broke into the business. All right. I mean, I had a guy named Bob Palin from Rhode Island who was starting his own little comic company called Ocean Comics. And basically what happened was he had seen a published short story I had done for Charlton Comics, a tryout comic book. He liked it, got a hold of me, and basically said, I'm starting a comic company. Is there anything you and your artist friend, Gary Cotto, would like to do? At that time, I had this idea for a 5-issue miniseries about an urban vigilante who was a high school teacher by day, and night he was a martial art expert who tried to clean up the streets of his town. All right. And I called that Street Fighter long before the video game popped up.
Okay.
Okay. So Bob Palin actually published over a period of a year all 5 issues of Street Fighter, which I wrote, which Gary drew and lettered, and there was another gentleman who did the colors, full color comic book. All right. And basically Bob, I mean, he sold it to Diamond. All right. It appeared in comic shops because we actually got reviews from comic book critics at that time. Okay. But as far as one single dollar, Gary and I never made a buck. What we made was copies of the comics.
Right.
And even then, I did a few local signings at local comic shops back then because I was published. It was a comic book. Okay. So following from that, the following year, Bob gets a hold of me again, this time wanting me to write a Popeye comic, which he had Ben Dunn on board as the artist. So I ended up doing the Popeye comic, which was a hoot, which was fun. Again, not a single penny. It's just basically comp copies. All right, okay. But here's the thing. Publishing those first 6 comics for exposure, for copies and whatever, literally put Gary and I under the radar of Mike Friedrich out of California, who'd seen our books in the Buyer's Guide to Comic Fandom, all that good stuff, and literally approached both of us to become our agents and help promote us as our careers grew to get into the business. Okay? That leads to I ended up in San Diego for the first time ever. Mike shows me around. I meet the people at Now Comics who are having a problem with their Terminator comic book. They hire me, all right, but now I've got an agent. And my agent works out a deal with them on what I'm going to be paid for writing Terminator for them. 4 months later, they buy my proposal for the Green Hornet, and now I'm doing 2 monthly comics at a specific rate that my agent set between the publisher and him for my benefit. And as I recall, when I started writing for Now, they were 24-page issues per month. And I was paid just a little over $100 per page for each script that I wrote.
Wow.
Okay. Now, you mentioned, Jose, other people have other jobs. Well, hey, by this time, I'm married. I have a family. I'm working for a General Electric factory back in New Hampshire, and there was no way I'm giving up that with insurance benefits and everything else, because I'm making, $1,000, $2,000, let's say, every month. One for Terminator, one for Green Hornet. So I kept working all the time I was writing those comics. There was no ever intention of me ever stopping that, right? Okay. So that's my general experience working for what I call a mid-range comic company, right? Now, years years after that had all ended, I hook up with a small independent comic company out of Portland, Maine, and there I meet a young artist trying to break into the business, and his name was Paul Pelletier. So Paul, I keep bugging Paul to send samples of his work to Marvel because he wants to work for Marvel in the first place. But he just won't do it. He just will not take the chance. We go to all these local conventions in New England, right? So finally, one of his friends, another artist with the company named Bob Cram, we worked out a plot where I would write an 8-page Hulk story. We'd give it to Paul to draw, to say, just for the fun of it. That's all we told him. Mm-hmm. Then once he was done, Bob was going to ink and letter it, and I would send it to Marvel, all right, without Paul knowing.
Right.
Okay? And we did it. We pulled it off. I wrote a script called A Town Called Hulk. Paul drew it over a period of a couple of weeks. It was absolutely beautiful. It was gorgeous. Then he gave it to Bob. Bob inked it, lettered it, and without Paul knowing it, Bob came to my house. We packaged it up, and we sent it to Bobby Chase at Marvel. Okay. So now, about 2 weeks go by. My wife and I are watching television. The phone rings. And my wife goes over. Yeah, right. He's right here. So she says, it's Paul Pelletier. So I walk over and I pick up the phone, right? I said, hi, Paul. And I get, you son of a bitch. True story. Because the minute he said that, I knew. I said, you heard from Marvel. You heard from Marvel, didn't you? And he goes, yeah, I heard from Marvel. They want the story. They want to know what else I can do for them. I've got to send them samples and whatever. And like, we pushed him in the door. Okay. So here's the thing. We're all happy about all this. Another week or so goes by, and I get this envelope from Marvel Comics, okay? And I open it up. There's an official invoice, blah, blah, blah. And they paid me $35 for that 8-page Hulk story. All right? So I'm like, okay, that's what Marvel's paying, for, first time, whatever. I got $35. I'm happy with that. It's okay. The thing with me was it was going to get published. It ended up in the Hulk Annual in 1989, and it was Paul's big start into the business, all right? And he took off like a rocket once they started seeing his work. Right. Went from Marvel to DC and whatever. But here's the fun of this, all right, that I didn't realize, again, the difference between mid-sized, small companies and the guys like Marvel and DC. A whole year goes by, and one day I'm getting the mail out of the mailbox, and I'm walking up to the house, and I'm going through it, and I see another Marvel envelope. And I went, okay, what's this all about, right? So I come in the kitchen, I open it up, my wife goes, what is it? And as I open it up, I see it's another check. I went, what? And sure enough, there's an itemized letter with it, right? It's for residuals. That annual kept selling, right? That check was for $130. Okay, a year later, right? So basically, after 35, I ended up making $165 off that little 8-page story that I did for him, right? So that was my one and only break into the big guys with the Marvel story. But I'm going to shift this over to David, because I know David's worked for Marvel in the past. And what can you tell us about their pay scales, Dave?
Well, when I worked for Marvel, actually I worked for Malibu, who was owned Marvel at the time. So it was completely different. I was young. It was my only job at the time, and we had basically a minimum wage. It was a minimum wage job. It did have some benefits and stuff, but then on top of minimum wage, you got paid per page, and depending on what level the page was, it would vary depending on how much you put into it. So if it was basic, like bronze page, it was like bronze, silver, gold, platinum. So if it was like a bronze page, it was like a $20 page.
Okay.
And gold was like 10, 10, 25, then 50, then 65, depending on what the level was. But you could knock a bunch of bronze pages out. So some people, if they were really good at planning and stuff like that, they could make as much, if not more, doing bronze pages because they could do a lot of them very quickly. I was always on the slower end of it, so it varied, but it was, for me, it was a regular job. I mean, you could sit there and do nothing at all and get minimum wage. Obviously, you wouldn't do that, but that was the base. That was the base thing, and I had a blast. But after that, when the location closed down, we had the courtesy, you guys are doing fantastic. We love your work, but we're gonna have to let you all go.
Wow.
That was economics and stuff shifting things, but end result was that after I left Marvel, I did some graphic design stuff, and then pretty much had to go find a regular job, and definitely had to do that. I did some side stuff, and then I was out of comics for quite a while. I'm this month. I pretty much got into this job that I'm at, and I've been here for 28 years. So it's been, primary job's been pretty much a staple here. But I started to get back into doing, the comic stuff. But I'm not the best example of how to make money. I don't work at the paces. What I've found and how people are successful are, obviously when people start out, like Ron said, a key experience is, it's definitely famine. People don't know who you are.
Right.
It's little things here and there, whatever. The people that tend to make money, I mean, the big money are the people who had a lot of exposure and a lot of things, your Jim Lees, your McFarlanes, and all of that. And they were able to cash in. They got, they were able to capitalize on their work, popularity of their work, and all that stuff. And a lot of other people, it seems like there's a lot of things that people are doing to just reach out and grab it and do things and stuff out there. There's people that are successful doing things like just covers.
Right.
They deal with a lot of the specialty companies and things like that. They are doing, there's people doing Marvel covers, but you look at, and a lot of those people there, they don't do interiors.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are some deals that they get where they get exclusive covers and things with these companies that they buy them directly and they sell them, and they're obviously a lot higher for the consumer, $20, $30, $40, where the companies are making it. So I don't know how that translates down to the individuals who are doing the covers and stuff. But I see some people that are doing like one or two covers in a month, and I don't know what else. They've got other things going on. I don't know how I couldn't survive off of that.
I mean, it depends on how much they're making off the cover.
I don't think you'll be making as much as you think.
No, I mean, not in today's economy and what the cost of living is.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's again, going back to this, the entire time I, from the time I broke into the pros, you talk to people, and I never had a single temptation to quit the day job. Because one of the first things you begin to understand, and I hope people listening to us, especially young creators, young writers and artists, all right, basically what's going to happen is you're a freelancer.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing, all right? You're not working for a set company. You don't go in and punch a clock, all right? So whatever gig you get, whatever assignment you get, you have no guarantees how long that's going to last, how long that money's going to last, all right? I mean, it's the whims of, I think, a media that has shrunk so much over the last 50 years that I've been in it, all right? I mean, when I first got into comics, I mean, literally, there were no electronic games. There were no video games. So you still had a basic audience of teenage boys and some girls who liked to read and who read comics, all right? I would think that audience is almost maybe 10% left of it. I mean, you go to conventions today and you don't see young boys or girls. You see college kids, adult kids, who've come in via the movies and the television shows and whatever, all right? And I think what's happened is a lot of creators have seen comics as an outlet for them to get to those other media. Not so much, hey, I want to be a comic book creator because I love comics and that's all I want to do. All right, it's basically, I'm going to make this graphic novel, and MGM and Warner Brothers are going to pick it up, and they're going to make a big movie, and I'm going to be rich and famous. Yeah, well, hey, good luck with that, right? I mean, it's like there's so many people all trying for the same thing. Again, somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I want to work in comics and get rich and famous. My answer to that is basically, don't give up the day job. I'm not telling you not to be a comic book creator, all right? But if you've got a stable job that pays you a paycheck every single week, and then you'll find time. You'll find time to write, and you'll find time to draw. And you'll get paid, and you'll handle your responsibilities, and you will outlast the people who, get out of college and that's it. I don't need a job. I'm going to go sleep on a park bench in Central Park until Marvel or DC hired me. Well, good luck with that.
Well, right. So I'm a realist, and that is not realistic.
Of course not. Of course not. All right. There is only so many jobs. All right. With the number of candidates wanting those jobs, I mean, by the hundreds, if not thousands.
Right.
So again, the realistic approach is, let me get published, keep writing, keep going to conventions. And what David said, and you've alluded to it as well, Jose, one of the most important things about being a successful comic creator is networking. Go to cons, meet as many other professionals as you can meet. All right, literally make friends.
Pick brains, respectfully. So
right.
Ask people questions. I have only come across since art school, it's been 6 years that I've been doing this professionally, and I probably only run into maybe 2 people at a show who didn't want to talk to me about or helping to answer questions. And they weren't busy because their table was flocked up because, I always, you have to be respectful and you have to wait till there's an opening to go in and say something, right? But never get in the way of them because they're there to make money. They're there to make sales. They're there to promote their product. They're there to promote their art. So if you're going to go up to someone and ask questions, do it respectfully, but ask questions. I've had several artists that have come up to me. I got to New York City Comic Con and I had a couple of people like, hey, you made it, man. Congrats. I was like, whoa. I've had another editor recognize my name, which blew my mind because I've only ever done small press stuff. You know, oh yeah, I've seen you. I've seen your stuff. And I think through my one of my social medias that they saw me is what we were talking about. You know what I mean? And I was just like, that you just right, because I don't expect anybody to know who I am, and that's okay. I am not doing it for fame and fortune. You know what I mean? I'm doing it because I love comics. And if I have had questions and I've come up to artists and I was like, hey, would you mind answering a couple questions for me? Like I was a little confused about something. They're not your work in general, but just like the process. And for the most part, they're pretty good about it. They'll answer questions. You know what I mean? So ask questions. Like you want to be step in and be a professional, ask questions.
All right. So now, how important is networking? All right. Now I'm going to give you the story that I teased you guys with at the end of last week's show.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Because this is mind-boggling. All right. Now I've already mentioned the fact that I had hooked up with this small little company in Maine, Alpha Productions. All right. Of which Paul Pelletier was one of the members. All right. There were 4 or 5 guys up there, and we all hit it off. And I ended up writing some comic books for them. All right. Under a pen name, all right, writing other stuff. And one of the guys there was a writer named Chris Mills, who sadly passed away last year, a really great guy. And Chris helped edit the books that we were doing because he was a Cooper School graduate.
Nice.
All right. So about a year and a half working with Alpha, producing these comics, again, that none of us are getting a penny for. We're just exercising. This is long after I'd done the Green Hornet and Terminator. And I'm okay with it because I'm still making comics. This is what I love to do. Well, lo and behold, about a year and a half, I go up to Rockland and I hang out with the guys, and Chris tells us he just learned, again, to another mutual friend, that there was a new comic company starting up in Boca Raton, Florida, that was going to be called Techno Comics. All right. And basically the story behind this is a husband and wife lawyer team from California had created the Science Fiction Channel Network. Okay. And they sold it for, I think, something like $5 million. Then their master plan was they were going to go down to Florida. They were going to create a comic book company that would highlight famous names. So they would have like a Mickey Spillane crime story, okay? They would have Leonard Nimoy, give them an idea, and it was called Leonard Nimoy's Primordials or something, okay? And then they got a hold of Gene Roddenberry's widow, Nigel Barrett, found some scripts for some TV shows he couldn't sell, and had those developed into a comic book series called Gene Roddenberry's Lost Universe. All right. Now, the husband and wife team know nothing about comics, but they bring to Florida with them another Californian named Ed Polgardi, who was a veteran comic book editor. Ed gets to Florida and it tells them his first job is to hire editors, because they're going to be doing, I mean, they're going to come out of the gate doing like 10 books a month or something, ridiculous thing.
Oh,
okay.
wow.
Okay. So they need editors. So they end up putting out the word throughout the, the comic community, we're looking for editors. Well, here we are in Maine, we're talking about this, and I knew that was Chris's dream. And so we're egging Chris, call him up, send me a resume, via, computer, and give it a shot. And what do you get to lose? Next thing you know, Chris gets a call back. We'd like you to come down for an interview. Chris gets on a plane, flies out to Boca Raton, and next thing you know, he's got a job as an editor at the new Techno Comics. His boss is Ed Polgardi, okay? And he meets fellow editors there, a horror writer named James Chambers, one of my old pulp writing colleagues, Marty Powell, and they become the bullpen of the new Techno. All right, the company's launched, the comics start coming out. And by now, I still don't have an idea, other than I'm picking up the comics myself. All of us are so happy with Chris. He's living down there, living his dream, right? I want to say 4 months go by, and I get a call one afternoon. Hey, Ron, and it's Chris. I said, hey, buddy, how you doing? He says, I'm doing great. He says, but he said, I want to know if you'd like to write a science fiction series for Techno. I said, oh? He says, yeah, Jim, the editor at Rottenberry's Lost Universe, is having problems with the writer. They went and got some New York Times best-selling science fiction writer who doesn't know how to write comics. So Jim, the editor, is pulling his hair out, and Mike Harris, the artist on the series, is going nuts because all this guy's giving him is talking head scripts. So they, we had a bullpen session. They asked, well, do we know anybody could come in and fix this? And he said, I remembered your work on Terminator. He says, you want in? I said, yeah, sure. I'm not doing anything. I haven't got any other projects going. He says, all right. Then he does this to me, right? He goes, don't get excited. But he says, the pay scale, the pay rate is $225 a page. I about fell out of my chair. I went, excuse me? I said, that's insane. He says, Ron, he says, all they're trying to do is produce comic books so that they'll make a flash in the pan. Somebody in Hollywood will see them, option them off, and make TV series and big summer blockbuster movies. And that's where they'll make their money. So they have no qualms shoveling out this $5 million to the writers and artists, to these obscene amount of money. I'm like, I'm dumbstruck. I said, you're pulling my leg. I mean, you're talking $2,000 a book, all right? Over $2,000 a monthly book. He said, Ron, he said, I don't know if this could work or it won't work. So all I'm telling you is that's what they're paying. You're nuts not to say yes. Take the money and run because we don't know how long they're going to be around. So I went, what do I do? He said, just hang loose. You'll get a call another day. Sure enough, the following day, I get a call from Jim Chambers, who I didn't know from Adam, but we since became good friends. And Jim said, hi. He says, I'm the guy that, Chris Mills told me about you, et cetera. I said, yeah. I said, I've been reading the comic. He says, I want to ask. He says, how would you change it? What would you do? So over the phone, I gave him some plot ideas of where I'd pick it up and how I would change it from what was being done. Jim went, man, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's definitely what this book needs. He says, honestly, he says, Mike Harris is a great artist, but he's getting ready to quit. He's threatening to quit. So he goes, Ron, how soon can you get script number 1 done? I said, I'm on. He said, you're on. We'll send you a contract. So by the end of the week, I had script number 1, sent it off to them, right? Invoice and all, got a check for $2,000 and whatever, okay? There's a small change. My wife went crazy. She went, what the hell? I said, trust me. I said, they're not going to be around. They lasted a year.
Wow.
They lasted a year. They were this close. When they folded, there were 1 or 2 Hollywood companies looking at their properties. But it was too late. They ran out of money. They ran out of money, all right? But so the moral of this story, guys, is that you can start off, A, not getting paid for anything, or B, end up getting paid ridiculously crazy money, all right, for writing a simple comic book page, right. All right? Come on, $225 per page? I mean, that's what I had no clue what they were paying their artists. If that's what they were paying their writers, think about that for a second, all right? These guys must have been making gold, all right? Okay? And all because I knew somebody. I knew a guy in a small independent comic company. Right. All right? And sure enough, after they all folded, Chris packed his bags, moved back to Maine, and started making comics again and selling them, on, Kablam and Indie Planet. And he started his own comic line, and he was working with Joe Staten and other professionals because he'd made a name for himself as a professional comic book editor. And he used that, okay? He took advantage of that. So here's the thing, comic fans, all right, comic creators, even if you don't get paid the moon, the experience you get for any comic you make is invaluable, all right? And you never know where it's going to come in handy. At the same time, you're making a reputation. You're making a resume. You're making a name for yourself. You're making a career. And you can't put a price tag on it. It's like Jose said, people recognize his name. Not a surprise. I'm sure the same happens to David, all right? David made connections, excuse me. Here's Roland starting Silverline after all these years. And a lot of the guys that are working for him now are guys that worked for him back at Malibu.
Right.
You can't put a price tag on network and the people you meet in the industry. Because honestly, yeah, there's one or two selfish, egotistical SOBs. But I want to say, I think 95 to 99% of the people you meet in comics are decent, good human beings, creative. All they want to do is have fun and make comics. So, hey, there you go.
Now, I kind of want to, the last thing I want to say is do your research, right? Not just, yes, network. Yes, everyone wants to make money. We are trying to make as much money as we can out of the, before our time on this earth is done, right? Do your research. Even as simple as I Googled 2026 comic book page rate, okay? This is what I got. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Maybe not. Oh, there we go. All right. As of 2026, right? Early 2026. And don't take this as gospel, comic creators out there, new comic creators out there. But pencilers for Marvel and DC starting rate was generally in the range of 160 to 26 or 260 plus per page. Inkers, less. As you go down the list, funny enough, everyone gets less. Inkers, 75 to 100 plus per page. Colorists, 30 to 100. Letterers, 10 to 25 plus. Studio agencies, I don't even know what that implies. Does that imply agents and whatnot? I don't know. But that's just literally the first search I looked up. And then there are other more Google links and stuff like that under there. But do your research. I thought, I didn't see it on there when I was looking, but I thought Bleeding Cool posted a yearly list of what companies were offering for page rates and stuff like that. That's not to say that you're going to get that. You may directly come out of the Kubert School and, as a penciler, and you might only get like $100. You can negotiate that if you want, but it's going to be what it's going to be. But that's for higher ups, the smaller pressed comic companies, little less resources that they have. You're going to get less for what you work on. I'm doing colors and inks for another book, and I'm getting paid pretty good for it. But I'm also divvying some of that up to my daughter, who's back from college, and doing my flats for me. So sometimes you want to delegate or outsource to get things moving faster. And once she flats, I can start doing the renders and get it all done. You know what I mean? Yep. And maybe we'll do another show where we explain what flatting is, or what the the process of coloring. I think we did that a little bit before, but we got superstar Dave here, colorist, who works magic on the computer, and
I trust me, I know. I'm working with Dave on a project, and he blows me away with every page he turns in. It's absolutely fantastic.
There are several times I've hit Dave up. Hey, Dave, something's not working for me. What did I do wrong? And I start walking him through it. He'll walk me through troubleshooting it. So I appreciate you, Dave. Let me start off with what I was about to say. We have been that Silverline show on Tuesday. Catch our other streams. We have Wednesday Wham at 9:00 Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays. We have Sunday Silver Sunday, and they go on at 8:00 Eastern Standard Time. And catch us for our next show. And I'm gonna have to switch month. Our next show, panel layout secrets.
Ooh.
Yeah, how to make comics flow, which that's a great subject and a great thing.
Yes, it is. So it's a fun subject. Yeah.
So thank you.
We will lean heavily on you for that.
That's right. Thank you for all those that have backed our crowdfund. Thank you for those who are going to look into helping us cross that line for our crowdfund. I appreciate every single one of you. I know Ron appreciates. I love every single one of you.
The heart, people from the heart. Okay, couldn't do this without you.
So, with that said, right, everyone have a great week. See you. Enjoy Wednesday's show and make mine
Silverline.
Hey, this is Paul Pelletier. Make mine Silverline. Is that okay, Roland?